day, everyone. I am Aubrey Morgie Abalon, and I will be discussing my lesson, which is the writing, items, and tasks. Good morning, everyone. My lesson for this session is the writing items and tasks. In this unit, we will investigate the process of item and task writing as part of the iterative process of writing test specification. In order to do this, we will draw, of course, another paradigm in language testing, that of evidence-centered design. So, we will be discussing the ECD or the evidence. What is ECD or the evidence-centered design? ECD is a methodology for designing assessments that underscores the central rule of evidentiary reasoning in assessment design. So, when we say ECD, it is a method for designing an assessment or a test for our takers. So, ECD is based on three premises. First is we have an assessment must build around the importance knowledge in the domain of interest and an understanding of how the knowledge is acquired and put to use. Of course, upon creating a test, you must first polish or establish knowledge to your takers. How are they going to partake the test or to answer the test questionnaire if they don't have knowledge about the assessment or about the questions that will be included in your test questionnaire? Next is the chain of reasoning from what participants say and do in assessment to inferences about what they know can do or should do. Another is the purpose must be driving force behind design decision, which reflects constraints, resources, and condition of use. Of course, you must establish first the purpose. Why are you going to let the takers answer this questionnaire or this test paper? The term evidentiary reasoning is what we have referred in this book as a validity argument. The argument shows the reasoning that support that inference we make from the test score to what we have claims those scores means. And also at the second point, it is quotation makes clear the reasoning or validity argument should connect what a test taker is asked to do in a test. Of course, it should be through the score. Evidentiary reasoning is also the reasoning that leads from the evidence to the evaluation of the strength of the validity claim. Feature of ECD. ECD, as originally proposed in the literature, claims to provide a very systematic way of thinking about the process of assessment and place of the task within the process. Of course, we have 6 models or designs in this lesson. First is we have the student model. This comprises a statement of the particular mix of knowledge, skills, or abilities about which we wish to make claims as a result of the test. So, in this first model, of course, our first concern is the test takers. Okay? This is the highest level model and needs to be designed before any other models can be addressed. So as I have said earlier that we will be discussing 6 models, but prior to the 5 remaining models, we have to discuss this first. Okay? It defines what we wish to claim about individual test takers. As I have said earlier, the student model answered the question, what are we testing? So, of course, before constructing questionnaires, you have to know first what are we testing? What is your goal? What is your objective? Second is we have the evidence models. Once we have selected contracts for the student model, we need to ask what evidence we need to collect in order to make inferences from performance to underlying knowledge or ability. So in ECD, the evidence is frequently referred to as work product, which means nothing more than whatever comes from what the test takers do. Okay? From the work product, there are one or more observable variables. In a multiple choice test, the work product is a set of responses to the items. So I assume that you are all familiar to a type of question which is the multiple choice. Of course, the structure of this is you're going to provide one question, and then for the students or test taker to find the correct answer, you are going to provide options. But of course, there must be one or the best answer that is relating to the question or that is related to the question. In performance tests, the issue are more complex. The work products may be contributions to an oral proficiency interview, and the observable variables would be the realization in speech of the construct in the student model. In evidence models also, the focus at this stage of design is the evidentiary interrelationship that are being drawn among characteristics of students of what they say and do and task and real-world situation in which they act. So you will not just also focus to the questions that are included to your assessment. Also, you have to assess the characteristic of the student and the relationship with the classmates or peers. Next is we have the task models. We can now see where test, task, and items fit into the picture. When we know what we wish to test and what evidence we need to collect in order to get a score from which we can make inferences to what we want to test. So in task model, we can ask, how do we collect the evidence? Okay? So how are you going to collect the evidences? Task models therefore describe the situations in which test takers respond to the items or tasks that generate the evidence we need. Also, task models minimally comprise three elements. These are the presentation material or input and also the work products or what the test taker actually do. And finally, the task model variables that describe task features. When we say task features are those elements that tell us what the task looks like and which parts of the task are likely to make it more less difficult. Presentation model. Items and tasks can be presented in many different formats. A text and set of reading items may be presented in a paper and pencil format or on a computer. The presentation model describes how this will be laid out and presented to test takers. So when we say presentation model, this is on how are you going to present the assessment or the test questionnaire to the test takers. It may on the paper and pencil or through computer or online questionnaires. Okay? So whatever it is, whatever format it is, as long as you are able to lay out or to present the questions to the test takers, it's all up to you. Make sure that your materials are all available during or upon the assessment. Next is we have the assembly model. An assembly model accounts for how the student model, evidence models, and task model work together. So there are some models that are being combined already in this assembly model. It does this by specifying two elements. The two elements are the targets and constraints. So when we say target, it is the reliability with which each construct in a student model should be measured, and for the constraints, it relates to mix of items or tasks on the test that must be included in order to represent the domain adequately. We have the delivery model. This final mode is not independent of the others, but it explains how they will work together to deliver the actual test. For example, how the modules will operate if they are delivered in computer adaptive mode or asset, paper, and pencil forms. So in delivery model, this is on how are you going to deliver the test questionnaire. How will be the test taker will interact with the questionnaires or with the assessment. This model would also deal with issues that are relevant at the level of the entire test, such as test security and the timing of section of the test. Since there are plenty ways of delivering the test or the assessment, you also have to make sure of the security, especially the information and then the answer of each students or test takers. Since there are many ways on how are you going to deliver the assessment, you have to make sure that if there will be an interruption upon taking the test, you have to think of an alternative ways. Let's say, for example, you're going to deliver the test through computer, but there are some circumstances that are unstoppable. What if there will be a shortage of electricity? Now, since there is a shortage of electricity, how are you going to deliver the test or the assessment if there is no computer or if there is a shortage of electricity? Okay, so you have to think an alternative ways on how are you going to deliver the assessment. So we have the task activities and goals. First is we have the interactional activity with relation to inform. So the purpose of this is to inform. Number one is each participant holds different information and needs both to give and to receive information in order to complete the task. Of course, for you to complete the task, you have the two of you must give and receive the information. Second is one participant holds all the information and supplies it. Third or lastly, we have each participant holds all the information. Now, for the interaction requirement for activity, number one is we have the each participant is expected both to request and supply the information. One participant supplies all the information. Lastly, for the interaction requirement for activity is we have the each participant is expected to request and supply information, but it is not obliged to do so, or the participants are not obliged to do so. Lastly, we have the communication goal with respect to goal orientation. So we only have two. First is participants have convergent goals. Lastly is the participants must have divergent goals. So this is the last part of this lesson. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned valuable lessons.